So that they claim that, if Jesus had been alive in the 20s, he would have been a Klansman, right? Which is a wild claim.
What does the relationship look like between Christianity and the KKK?
Christianity is embedded in these white supremacist movements, right? Protestant Christianity helped uphold white supremacy, and white supremacy helped uphold this white Protestant Christianity, so that they very much worked in tandem. They were not separate. They were not understood as separate. So that Klansmen turn to biblical text to show that there's like a racial hierarchy that we should follow. And then they took examples too from religious leaders, right? So that they claim that, if Jesus had been alive in the 20s, he would have been a Klansman, right? Which is a wild claim. Christianity is a part of white supremacy, and Christianity and white supremacy work together to form an American identity, an American nation. So the other piece of this that I think is so important is that for the Klan in the 20s, and then these white supremacist movements later, that to be an American meant that you needed to be a white Protestant Christian, but also that you were going to uphold white supremacy and all the structures of white supremacy.
I find that so interesting because as an outsider, right, someone who's not Christian, it feels to me like, and it sounds like you feel the same way, that Christianity and the KKK, like they're opposing forces. Right. White supremacy is antithetical to Christianity.
So the claim that the Klan made, and this is the fascinating logic of how you get to a certain argument, right, is what I should say. The claim that they made is that Jesus was Jewish. So admittedly, they understood that. And then they took it and shifted it and said, because he was Jewish, he was supportive of his ethnicity and his clan, small c. And so because he had, which is basically this ethnic pride is what they're claiming, he would then understand, right, that other groups would have this ethnic pride, and he would really want to keep the purity, of his particular group. So the Klan takes this and says, oh, we can do this about whiteness too, right? That we're going to say that, if Jesus were around today, he would totally be down with white people. This is not Klan language, it's my language. Totally be down with white people saying we're going to preserve whiteness, right? And we're going to preserve white dominance. And so they take these ideas that at face value, most of us would be like, okay, these make sense. And then combine them with white supremacy. And then they would do a lot of that textual cherry picking, right? So examples of descriptions of race in biblical text that they then are able to say, oh, we know that white people are the pinnacle of civilization or something like this. So that they selectively remember things about ethnicity in peoples in the Bible, but then kind of wipe it clean.
So one more question to kind of push us along. So you're talking about this relationship between white supremacy and Christianity, and your work is specifically focused in the early 1900s, the formation of the Klan, correct?
Right.
And so what does this look like as we historicize it into today? I mean, there are a lot of conversations today. I mean, we hear the words white supremacist. We hear the word white nationalist. We don't really hear about the KKK as much.
A lot of this stuff is stealthier today than it was with the Klan. So the Klan had no problem declaring that we're for white supremacy, we're for Protestantism, 100% Americanism, this sort of thing. So I think it's harder to kind of maneuver through now. But we see this, right, with white Christian groups who are firmly on the side of the Trump administration's policies towards, trans people, right, or particularly LGBTQ people. We see this when they want to ignore the racism of Trump's rhetoric and his speeches and how he handles himself regarding immigrants. So you see that there are Christian leaders and Christians that attend churches that are very supportive of his policies, which are white supremacist policies. They just don't want you to call them white supremacist policies or reflect it back on them, right? Though I do think people are parsing it and paying attention to this and seeing what white churches are actually talking about Black Lives Matter, right? Or are they doing all lives matter?
One of the distinctions that people aren't overly clear about is between white nationalism and white supremacy. Could you help us understand that a little bit?
So leading up to 2016, where folks wanted to not call people like the alt-right white supremacists, they wanted instead to say they were white nationalists. That is a particular offshoot of white supremacy. If we think about white supremacy as kind of an umbrella, right, that there are lots of movements that we can put within this, but we also can do the structural analysis about structural racism too, and policing in schools, right, banking, all of these kinds of ways that the American system is built on white supremacist practice and status quo. So white nationalists then was like the nice way to talk about these movements, and particularly to sort of make them just political,